When a woman discovers the power of being alone with God, women have been trained to fear silence and solitude. From a young age, we hear that a woman alone is incomplete, that she needs a relationship, children, or a busy schedule to have value. When we see a woman dining alone or sitting on a park bench without anyone, the world's first thought is, "Poor thing, she must have been rejected." We've learned to fill every second of our day with noise, social media, and superficial conversations, all to avoid confronting ourselves in the mirror. We believe the lie that isolation is a punishment, a sign that we've failed in our social or romantic lives. We run from silence as if it were a monster that will devour us, without knowing that it is precisely in silence that our true strength resides. But what if I told you that the Bible presents a completely opposite view of the woman who remains alone? What if the moments of greatest glory, revelation, and feminine power in Scripture didn't happen before crowds, but in the secrecy of a locked room or on the sands of a desert? There is a spiritual secret kept for those who have the courage to disconnect from people in order to connect with the divine. When a woman discovers what the Bible really says about being alone with God, she stops running away, back human validation, and it starts running to the secret place. She discovers that she wasn't abandoned, but rather set apart for something exclusive. Loneliness ceases to be a burden of rejection and transforms into a crown of choice. In this video, we're going to delve deep into the Word to unlock this mystery. You'll discover what happens spiritually, emotionally, and physically when a woman decides to close the door to the world and open the door to heaven. Get ready, because your perspective on being alone will never be the same again. To understand this power, we first need to make a surgical distinction between two words that seem the same, but are opposites: loneliness, and solitude. Solitude loneliness is a state of pain. It is the feeling of imposed isolation, of abandonment. It is feeling empty even in the midst of a crowd. It is the pain of having no one. Solitude, on the other hand, is a state of glory. It is the deliberate choice to withdraw for a greater purpose. It is being physically alone but completely spiritually fulfilled. The woman who suffers from loneliness is desperate for any company. The woman who enjoys solitude is selective, for she knows the value of her own company with God. Look to the example of Jesus. The Gospels repeatedly recount that although he loved the crowds, he often withdrew to deserted places to pray. He knew that people drain you, but solitude recharges you. If the Son of God himself needed this time alone to maintain his identity and strength, how much more do we women, who carry so many responsibilities? Being alone with God is not a punishment for those who have no friends. It is a true privilege for those who desire intimacy. It is the only moment of the day when you don't have to be mother, wife, daughter, or boss. In these sacred moments of solitude, all labels fall away, and you become simply daughter again. When you understand this difference, the fear disappears. You stop looking at an empty Saturday night as a failure and start seeing it as a divine encounter. Solitude is the laboratory where God rebuilds the self-esteem that the world tried to destroy. Many women feel they are going through an emotional or spiritual desert. Perhaps you've lost a job, a relationship has ended, or your children have left home. The silence hurts. But there's a secret hidden in the original Hebrew language of the Bible that changes everything about this phase. The Hebrew word for desert is midbar, and the Hebrew word for saying is now they share the same linguistic root. This is no coincidence. In the biblical mindset, the desert is not just a place of sand and heat. It is literally the place of speech. It is the place where God's voice becomes audible because there is no interference. God says through the prophet Hosea, "Behold, I will allure her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her." Hosea 2:14. Understand the divine strategy here. He doesn't say he will meet you at the mall or at a party. He says he needs to allure you, sometimes even force you, to go to the desert, to isolation. Why does he do this? Because as long as there is human noise around you, you won't be able to hear the whispers of love he has for you. God often removes people from your life not to punish you, but because he is jealous of your attention. He wants exclusivity. The desert, then, is not a sign that God has forgotten you. On the contrary, it is a sign that He has prepared a VIP exclusive area where He will declare promises about your life that no one else can hear. If you are alone today, pay attention. God is about to speak. Let's analyze the story of Hagar, a woman who experienced the cruelest loneliness imaginable. She was a foreign servant, used, abused, pregnant, and then banished to the desert to die. She had no husband, no rights, and no friends. She felt like the most invisible and disposable person on earth. It was there, alone, weeping by a spring on the road to Shur, that the angel of the Lord found her. Note that He did not appear to her in Abraham's tent full of people. He appeared when she was completely alone, and in that encounter, Hagar becomes the first person in the Bible to give God a name. She calls Him the King, which means, the God who sees me. Think about the depth of that. A woman whom the world treated as nobody discovers, in solitude, that the Creator of the universe had His eyes fixed on her all along. Solitude was the stage for the revelation of her identity. When a woman is alone with God, the first healing that occurs is the healing of invisibility. We spend our lives trying to be seen by men, by fathers, by bosses. But when we are alone with Him, we discover that the only gaze that matters is already upon us. Hagar returned home transformed. She no longer needed Sarah's or Abraham's approval to know who she was. She had had an encounter with the king. A woman who discovers God in secret becomes immune to public rejection. Esther is the classic example of a woman who carries the weight of a people on her shoulders. She had to confront King Xerxes to save the Jews from death, a suicidal mission. What did she do? She didn't rush to social media to protest, nor did she call an emergency meeting with advisors. Esther's first reaction was to withdraw into herself. She sent a message to Mordecai. Go, gather all the Jews, and fast for me. She isolated herself in her royal chambers, without food or water, for 3 days. Before facing the public battle, she won the private battle. This is a non-negotiable spiritual principle. A woman's public victory is forged in her secret chamber. It is in moments alone with God, in fasting and prayer, that we receive the strategy, courage, and favor necessary to bring down giants out there. Many women are exhausted and defeated because they try to fight their battles with human strength, based on conversations and venting with friends. Esther teaches us that true power comes from strategic isolation. She entered the king's chamber clothed in authority because she had stripped herself of her ego in the presence of God. If you have a big decision to make or a big problem to solve, don't rush to the phone. Run to the secret place. Close the door. The woman who knows how to be alone with God resolves in 3 days of silence what would take 3 years of noise and human effort. The story of Martha and Mary in Luke 10 mirrors many of us. Martha represents the modern woman, busy, stressed, multitasking, serving God with her hands but far from Him in her heart. She was surrounded by people, making noise in the kitchen, taking care of many tasks. Mary, on the other hand, represents the woman who understood the secret. She sat at the Lord's feet and listened to His word. She ignored social expectations, ignored the dirty dishes, and even ignored her sister's criticism to be alone with Jesus in the middle of the room. When Martha complains, Jesus pronounces an eternal sentence. Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but only one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Activism is often an escape from facing silence. Being alone with God, standing at His feet, is not a waste of time. It is the only thing necessary. It is there that anxiety dies. Jesus said that this part will not be taken from you. Everything you gain through manual labor can be lost, but what you absorb in the presence of God becomes an eternal part of your soul. The lesson here is brutal. You can work to God and yet be empty of God. The wise woman knows how to pause the world, put down the broom or the notebook, and prioritize the position of student at the feet of the Master. Intimacy is worth more than activity. Hannah is another woman who teaches us about the power of solitary weeping. She was barren and was taunted daily by her rival Peninnah. Her pain was so deep that when she went to the temple, she withdrew from her family. The Bible says that she prayed in her heart. Only her lips moved, but no sound came from her voice. She was so immersed in God, so isolated in her anguish with him that the priest Eli thought she was drunk. See the contrast? The religious leader didn't understand her profound spirituality, but God did. It was in that moment of total solitude and surrender, where she poured out her soul, that the miracle of Samuel was conceived. Often, your pain is so personal that no one can understand it. Your husband doesn't understand. Your mother doesn't understand. Your pastor doesn't understand. And that's intentional. This human incomprehension pushes you to stay only with the one who searches hearts. Hannah transformed her bitterness into silent prayer. She didn't make a public scene. She made a secret deal with God. And God honored that moment of intimacy. Samuel, one of the greatest prophets of Israel, was the son of a mother who knew how to weep alone at the altar. Don't waste your pain by confiding in someone who can't help. Take it to a private space. The silence of your pain, when shared with God, speaks louder than any scream. Imagine being untouchable for 12 years. The woman with the flow of blood lived in solitude enforced by law and illness. She couldn't hug, she couldn't be at parties, she was considered impure. Her solitude was both physical and humiliating. She spent all she had on doctors, seeking humane solutions, and nothing worked. But one day she decided to seek a divine solution. She entered the crowd, but she was alone in her purpose. She said to herself, "If I only touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed." That touch was a secret act, an individual connection amidst the collective chaos. Jesus felt power go out from him and asked, "Who touched me?" Dozens of people were bumping into him, but only one touched him with the faith born in the solitude of suffering. The crowd bumps into God, but only the woman who seeks him in secret truly touches him. That moment of healing wasn't just physical, it was social. Jesus called her daughter in front of everyone, restoring her dignity. It all began with her decision to seek God alone, breaking through the barriers of the crowd. Sometimes you need to ignore the crowd, ignore the experts who say there's no way, and reach out to him alone. The miracle happens at that personal and exclusive point of contact. Jesus gave a clear and technical instruction on how to access God's power. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. The metaphor of the closed door is powerful. It signifies deliberately blocking out external distractions. When you close the door to the world, you automatically open a window to heaven. It's a change of environments. In secrecy, there's no audience to applaud, no likes to count. It's just you and the essence. It's the place where hypocrisy dies and truth is born. God promises a public reward for what is done in secret. The beauty, wisdom, serenity, and strength of a Christian woman do not come from makeup or fashion. They come from the glory she absorbs when she is locked away with the Father. It is like Moses, who came down from the mountain with his face shining. The closed room is the dressing room of transformation. It's where you shed your masks and God clothes you in new garments of strength and dignity. No woman leaves the secret place the same way she entered. It's a spiritual impossibility. If you want to shine out there, you need to disappear in here. If you want to have authority on earth, you need to have submission in secret. The closed door is the gateway to the supernatural in your daily life. Don't be afraid of the empty nest. Don't be afraid of not having a boyfriend. Don't be afraid of the silence of the house when everyone goes to sleep. These moments are not empty spaces to be filled with TV or food. They are sacred spaces that God has cleared so He can sit with you. When a woman discovers the joy of God's company, she becomes dangerous to darkness. She becomes emotionally stable because she no longer begs for human affection. She becomes wise because she hears the voice of the eternal. She becomes fulfilled because the fountain of living water is within her. Solitude with God is in truth the best company there is. It's an invitation to a divine date, a prearranged meeting where He wants to reveal secrets He wouldn't tell anyone else. I want to give you a challenge today. If you're feeling lonely or if your life is too noisy, try this. Tonight, close the door. Turn off your cell phone. Be silent for 10 minutes and just say, God, it's just me and you. Talk to me. If you want to learn more about how to transform your life through the Bible, subscribe to the channel now. Don't live on emotional crumbs when you have a banquet waiting for you in the secret place. May God bless you, and until the next video.